And welcome to the Eagle Eye podcast. I am David Warrick. I'm Executive Vice President here at Overhaul. And today I am joined by Brian Smith, CEO of Banyan Technologies. Brian, so glad that you were able to join me this morning.
Dave, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation and sharing some thoughts and ideas of what's going on in the industry. Certainly a lot of exciting, dynamic things right now.
Yeah, it's a interesting time. So to begin with, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about Banyan and what you've been working on and what you've built.
Sure. Banyan we are a connectivity platform in the freight execution space. So we focus on over the road, as we like to say. If you've got rubber tires, we'd love for you to use our platform to move your freight needs. And we cover North America, everything from truckload on down through to parcel and everything in between.
Fantastic. And it's a really nice platform. So congratulations. And I read your latest report, the impact of AI on freight procurement. It was a really interesting insight just in terms of how you as a technology provider thought about AI and thought about how it's changing your space. Do you want to share some of the conclusions of that? Because I thought it was very interesting in terms of how you made it really clear that this is not just about layering in another solution. There has to be some thought put into it. You need to go for the actual gains and show real productivity improvement to be able to entice customers to then make that bet. Is that a fair synopsis?
I think it's a very fair synopsis, and I think if we aren't there already, I think we're going to have a growing population that's going to tire of the AI term. And I think what we're really talking about is a really enablement period of time, and I think we're going to leverage the capabilities of AI agents, the use of chatbots, and really the modeling of the data behind the AI agents to take those less strategic tasks and make them more automated so that we as individuals will be able to do more meaningful work, frankly. And what we preach really to our organization internally is enabling the skills they have. And we should embrace and be excited about AI. Similarly to as the internet became a real thing and we started to get our head wrapped around on what that could do for us. So when we're taking a view of our platform and looking at our product strategy, AI will be interwoven just like with other organizations and really focused on how do we take the data that's available, the data that in platforms like yours and ours, and put actionable information in front of people more quickly, more efficiently. We say here at Banyan that we don't. None of us need more data. We need more actionable data. How do we position you as an individual to have something come to you? And we'll talk about proactive here in a minute, right? Predictive type AI tools. But what managers and leaders really want is more actionable data in the hands of the people that need to make those decisions quickly and efficiently in alignment with the goals of the organization. And it's true all the way down to the dock, the selection of carrier, the determination of when do I need something picked up on the front end, making a decision of the right mode, the right carrier with confidence.
Yep. And I think your report sort of highlighted the bit that you really think about AI as this true co-pilot, as an augmentation to an existing skill set, and in this, if you like, first iteration. Because and you and I both know this, like we're only at the first step of a very
Sure.
very long journey here. But in that first step, getting away from the sort of hype and the discussion of AI is going to eradicate everybody's job. Not going to be anything left. It's all going to be automated. It doesn't just work like that. And I think that the positioning of this is a true co-pilot scenario whereby the technology is going to enable and enhance the current capabilities of companies like Banyan, of companies like Overhaul to actually work better, and then to move us to the left, more to this predictive insight, action oriented approach, which I think is very rich, for both companies to actually enable that.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And the I think some of the fundamental things we're releasing in AI, one of our first tools we're going to release is a voice agent that will call the carriers to pick up a document to allow the 3PL to get an invoice out the door, those type things. But while that's being released, the things that we're excited about working on is a predictive tool that understands physically where the truck is at and when the delivery time was scheduled, and looking at the literally using Google Map and looking at the highways and if there's any traffic issues and whether or not that truck is going to show up on time. And a simple predictive example that then alerts the receiver of the goods to say, hey, this guy, this driver is not going to make it. He's sitting in St. Louis right now, and he's supposed to be in north of Chicago at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And it's a simple example, less about the tool, but I think to your point of we're just beginning to think of what some of these predictive type tools can do with the data they have. And, how do you help me ward off problems? How do you and of course overall has been ahead of the game in building tools to say, hey, that truck is going down a path that doesn't really align with the destination point. Do we have a potential problem here? Or who's actually picking up the load versus who I booked it with? And do I have an imposter here? Those type situations, and alert the knowledgeable people so they can decide whether or not they need to take action.
And this concept of a more connected freight ecosystem starts to play into life because with the intelligence that overhaul has in terms of what's happening right now and when something starts to deviate or makes an unscheduled stop or there's a bad actor, and then linking that through to what Banyan has in terms of an entire transport management system and looking end to end, it starts to open up a number of new possibilities in terms of we can start to think about less about the disparate data silos that we've always had to work with and
That's
start
right.
to think more about what does an integrated approach look like and then what is the value that we can pull out of that. And I know our teams are continually working on what does that future state look like, and with the amount of data, and I mean, we're like we've got at the minute, I think we've got like 12 billion data points and we're adding 200 million data points every month, and you must be in a similar position. And the beauty of AI is its ability to harness those huge
That's correct.
amounts of disparate data and then do something intelligent with them, as long as you know what the intelligent thing is. And that's where we have to remind, like, there's going to still be a human in the loop, because unless you've stood at the dock door, unless you've jacked up a pallet and moved it onto the back of a truck, you're not going to understand the complexities of what shipping actually is,
That's correct.
and what can potentially go wrong. When the trailer backs up and the dock door doesn't open because there's nobody there to open it, there's only
That's right.
so much AI can fix.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I think this is where we talk about human enablement. And at the end of the day, there's still a human that's going to be contracting with the carrier and agreeing on a contractual situation. But I think AI can model that new contract and affirm for you that the quote you're receiving electronically is today we can pull it in through the API, and I can compare the quote against the final invoice. Tomorrow we'll be comparing that quote against the contract immediately upon receipt to ensure that the API is in alignment with the contract you had. And so there'll be some instantaneous audit capabilities, et cetera, but we still need a human on the front end to set that up and have those discussions with the carriers and all the variables that have to be dealt with. And then on the back end, where there are variances, there'll be some automation of that, but certainly for years to come, human intervention to resolve and continue those carrier relationships. As an example, certainly the same applies on the client side. So it's a very exciting time. I think there's a lot of opportunity for all of us, and one of the big challenges is where do you focus first?
Yep.
Um,
And that's it.
by the way, I'm pretty sure when the internet first came out, all of our jobs were going to be eliminated then as well. So
So and again, it's a great point. Over time, history has told us that, and in every revolution, there's always there's a positive and a negative. And right now, I think we're in the middle of what I would classify as Amara's law. So Roy Amara, from Stanford, a futurist in the 70s, he coined the phrase Amara's law, which was we tend to overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term.
yeah,
And right now
I
we're
like
we're at
that.
that point of inflection, Brian, whereby I think we've gone through the all doom and gloom, no jobs, everybody, everything is automated and autonomous, to sort of this, they call it like the winter of discontent, whereby it's like, well, hold on a minute. I thought you said everything was going to be easy and everything was going to be different. And now we're coming out the other side, but we really can't articulate very well what the future technology will look like. And there's another challenge here. We've grown up in a world of the Internet of Things. We're about to become the Internet of Everything, where every single thing that you're surrounded by and everything in the supply chain. We tend to get the consumer focus on, and we say, well, now my refrigerator talks to me and my kettle talks to me and my toaster talks to me, and I can talk to Alexa and she can do all of these things. And that's the consumer iteration. But from a supply chain perspective, and in overhaul, we pride ourselves on having that entire IoT framework, whereby we use any device. We don't, we're not humbled by any one technology. We use everything. And part of that is because everything in the next 5 years is going to have a signal. So the amount of data that the supply chain is going to continue to generate is actually on an exponential curve. And for companies like Overhaul and Banyan, one of the opportunities is our ability to harness that data, get the signal from the noise, and then build those predictive
That's
capabilities.
correct.
And that is the richness of this sort of point of inflection that we're now in. But the industry needs to catch up. Like there's not there's excitement and not enough engagement. And I think that the next couple of years are going to be incredibly important in terms of who's going to be a front runner and who's going to be left behind. And I'm not seeing a true differentiation yet. I don't know what you're seeing in the industry, but I'm seeing that the early adopters of AI are going to actually be the winners, because this isn't a I'm going to sit on the sidelines until it's all proved itself. It's too democratized as a technology. It's too readily available.
Yeah, I think we're definitely too early to tell. I do feel one certainly that clients and carriers alike are all feeling the need, which I think is great. I do feel a great sense of collaboration. I don't feel people running clients and carriers creating silos, so to speak. I think we're all trying to figure out how to do that together. Historically, LTL, due to the complexity of the loads and the movements and the unique tracking and other needs invested, I think got ahead of the curve on technology overall, and truckload was catching up a bit. I think we're all clearly seeing that the truckload side of things, certainly the bigger players are plowing a lot into the technology side, which I think will
It's good.
bear
Yeah.
great fruit for all of us. On the data point side, it is very interesting. I think we're just scratching the surface on what we're going to be able to do. There's a lot of discussion in the past 6, 9 months on dimensionalizers, and I think carriers are going to get, well, dynamic pricing will become more of a reality. They're moving warehouses, right? These
Right.
are warehouses on wheels, and they're
Yeah.
trying to maximize the square footage in their trailers. And I think with data, they're going to be more enabled to do that. And I think we, as both a technology platform and the brokers and the shippers, we're going to be put in a position to embrace that. And I think we'll be able to very effectively. But we've got to acknowledge that, our warehouses have to be configured to take advantage of this. I think carriers are getting smarter. I think at TIA earlier this year, they called out that I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%, just north of 40% of all current carrier invoices have some type of additional charge versus 10 years ago was under 10%.
Right.
And I think that will continue as things get more specific, which means I've only got so many square foot in that 53-foot trailer, and you're welcome to as much as you need, but you're gonna need to pay for as much as you need.
Right.
And so there'll be the tightening of those type things. But the good news is there'll be great intelligent tools to help us make sure that we're choosing the right mode, and that if we're shipping something parcel that should go LTL or something expedite that could go parcel more effectively, we're going to be in a position to be able to do that. The
Right.
technology is there.
And yeah, and then from our side, from an overall perspective, we're just going to be so much better at being able to predict risk across any lane, any carrier, any route, which I think is going to be an important part of the TMS activity as well, which is when you're booking that lane, understanding what the potential risk impacts are, or it's going to be a really interesting piece of information, which has always been a little bit like third party, like another screen. So there's a lot of potential in integration. We're getting close to the end of our conversation here, Brian. So I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of one last thing. As you're working with your customers today, and they're excited about AI, they're excited about what Banyan delivers. What are they asking you for? What are they looking for as your next step?
I think the two big things we're seeing is one is I think most people are trying to walk before we run. So I think to the extent that we can work with them to deliver functional low risk tools that allow them to reduce administrative work,
Right,
like an AI agent. There's two big things that have caught on well. One is the ability of a voice agent to call into a carrier to pull documents, number one. The second is to be able to call a carrier based on tracking updates that we receive from the carrier, that sometimes the need to call a carrier or a terminal to determine is this load on time is a very manual effort today. And there's tools available today that will automate that and call into the carrier itself very intelligently and ask a series of appropriate questions to figure out if the load is on time or if there was a missed pickup, what the rescheduled pickup is, et cetera. So those type redundant administrative tasks, that would be number one. And then the second thing our clients really have been asking for, and we're able to deliver, is you think about where the lines are drawn between modes historically of this goes truckload, this goes LTL, this goes parcel. Those lines really have become blurred in the last 18 months. As a little bit of the freight recession and as carriers are reassessing what type freight they want. And you kind of coupled with dimensionalizers becoming more prevalent and dynamic pricing is really a single experience that allows them to basically look at a given load and factor in dimensions, weight, transit time, required in-hands date, and come back and say, hey, I can do it on this carrier on LTL for this. I can send this FedEx overnight air for this, and et cetera, but basically allow the blending of those mode options and service level options easily in a consumption, frankly, similar to the way you and I book a plane flight. And
right.
you go to a neutral site
Yep.
and you see what your options are. And do I want to go direct, or am I okay stopping along the way? Those are the two big things. And David, what it really comes down to then, if you boil your way down through it, it comes down to cost savings, right? They're saving administrative time and then choosing the right mode that's going to get the product to where it needs to be safely, securely, at the most effective cost. And then really, my last comment is that to be able to do this all in a single platform, very few. I will call out, I can't think of a client situation or a prospect situation where they were looking to do this because they wanted to reduce staff. What they want to do is enable their staff, and the more productive, the more meaningful work that can get done
Right.
in this day and age. And that's why I say we should embrace this. People will see the great benefits from this.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great point. I think that what we'll also see is we will see a rise in agentic AI use cases, and it may be that the one platform for everything may end up being a series of microservices.
Agreed.
under an existing infrastructure with agents working very seamlessly and using new protocols to be able to talk to each other, because there's still a connectivity issue just at the very foundational level. But there's some, the MCP protocols and a few other of these ones are starting to say we can control the API engines in an interesting and seamless way. And there is going to be some level of agentic governance, which may start to break down some of these barriers. But these are all still theories, right? This is
Yep.
still like, yeah, in practice on a spreadsheet, it works. In real life, I think you're right. It's still, for the next few years anyway, it's all going to be about the augmentation of the service and the augmentation of the people running the service today. And everybody will benefit while we figure out the next
I agree with
iteration.
that.
And
Absolutely.
that's a good thing. Hey, Brian, thank you so much for joining me for the chat this morning. Really, really enjoyed it. We could talk for a lot longer on any and all of these topics, but I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been the Eagle Eye podcast from Overhaul with my special guest today, Brian Smith from Banyan Technologies. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me. Take care.